Before we start with our forum and give our candidates a chance to introduce themselves and answer your questions, I just want to ask you to join me in a moment in thanking all of them for running for office. Something that I've learned as the principal here at Milford High School is that our neighbors who serve on elected boards and committees here in town, such as the Board of Selectmen and the school committee, they give up an extraordinary amount of their time. They do not get paid any money for this work. It's a strictly volunteer position, and they do it because they love our community and they want to give back to our community. And simply running, I think, is a real, it's a real sign of service and commitment to our community. So before we start, please join me in thanking all of our neighbors for their service to our community. So at this time, I'd like to introduce behind me, we have Mr. Mike Walsh and Ms. Amy Clifford, who are both running for a seat on the Board of Selectmen. Mr. Walsh is the incumbent who's presently serving on the Board of Selectmen, and Ms. Clifford is the challenger. I'm going to give each of them 2 minutes to introduce themselves to you this morning, and then we'll have a few minutes to take questions from the audience, and then respond to your questions, and then we'll bring up our candidates for the school committee in just a couple of moments. So, right, we're starting with Mr. Walsh, right? Sure. Mr. Walsh, we'll give you a chance to start.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for taking the time to be here. My name is Mike Walsh. I'm the current chairman of the Board of Selectmen here in Milford. A little bit of history on me. I've lived in this community and worked in this community for over 30 years. Some of you might have done some research on me. I served in the Milford School Committee for 9 years. I was chairman of the Milford School Committee for 2 years. I sat on the Armory Renovation Committee. I sat on the Milford Youth Commission. I'm currently on the Downtown Revitalization Committee. So as you can see, I'm very involved in this community. Your principal brought up a great point. Tip O'Neill, the former congressman, had a great saying that all politics is local. And I used to say all the time, when I was on the school committee, as one of the school committee members, I was responsible for spending $46 million a year of taxpayer money. And it was very difficult to get people to come out for a local election. So I'm going to ask all of you, do you know what the difference between a local election and a national election is? Who knows the difference? Go ahead, please.
A national election has to do with like governors and presidents, but a local election has to do with like towns.
Yep, very good. So what happens is that, and now as a selectman, as a sitting selectman, I'm responsible for spending $100 million of taxpayer money. $100 million. And yet, we can get people to come out and vote in a national election, but very little people come out and vote for a local election. And that's why a forum like this is so very, very important, that we teach you as young people that your vote does make a difference. It does make a difference. Wherever you are, it does make a difference. So again, I want to say thank you for holding this. I welcome any questions that you may have for me, but please get out and vote, because it does make a difference locally. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Hi, my name is Amy Clifford. I'm running for Board of Selectmen. I'm so happy to be here talking to you. Like Mike had said, the Board of Selectmen has a $100 million budget that we run. There's only 3 people on the Board of Selectmen, and they determine where we put that $100 million. This is a very large town that we live in, but there's only 3,000 people that vote in this little election that determines who spends that $100 million. And I encourage you to get involved, and please, if you all registered for vote and then showed up on April 2nd and voted, you could change the election. You could change where Milford spends that money. Because I think if you got a little bit involved, you might be a little shocked to hear what's been going on in our own town with how our Board of Selectmen thinks and how they spend money. And if you're upset at the national politics level, get involved locally, because if you vote here, you can make a difference on where we spend that $100 million. And I swear to you, if you take a look at it, you'll be shocked and surprised as to how our Board of Selectmen thinks about this town, where they are strategically thinking, they think about the makeup of this town, and I really want you guys all to vote for me, because I represent, I'm a lawyer, so I represent people who are having difficulties in their lives, and I know it matters. Like, our decisions that we make at the town level matter to all of us. So please get involved with me in my candidacy. I definitely need your help because I'm an independent and I'm also a challenger, and I also am a mother and I have a full-time job, and I can't do it by myself. So if you have any questions or want to get involved, you can just reach out to me directly. I gave principal my business card, and I'd love to have somebody help me with my social media campaign. I really want to hear what you guys have to say. There's a very young person, a 23-year-old running for school committee, and I can't tell you the impact that he's made on this town and the election, and he comes from like, you know, the young mind, and it's just amazing what the impact of like one person can do. So if I think about how all of you registering for vote and registering and then voting, what the impact you'd make, it makes me so excited. All right, thank you.
So, Mr. Walsh and Ms. Clifford, we'll take questions from our students in just a moment. I'd like to start off with the first question. If I could ask each of you to take a moment to tell our students, what do you see as one or two of the greatest challenges facing Milford in the next 5 years? And what do you believe the Board of Selectmen can do to help address those challenges effectively?
So the greatest challenge facing the town of Milford right now is the purchase of the Milford Water Company. Water is a resource, and as everybody knows, if you control the resources, you control a lot of things in life. Any of you that have followed the purchase of the Milford Water Company, we went to town meeting a year ago and we got $63 million approved to purchase the Milford Water Company. The Department of Public Utilities came back and said the Milford Water Company was worth only roughly about $45 million. The Milford Water Company hired an outside company to do a survey, and they came back and said the Milford Water Company is worth $150 million. We're a long ways away. So we're back at the table, and we're renegotiating, but it's very important that we purchase the Milford Water Company. And I talk about it all the time, and I'm not ashamed to talk about it. Why would we need to purchase the Milford Water Company? For the last 4 to 5 years, we've had a water ban in this community. And a lot of people don't know that it's mandatory. The state makes you put a water ban on every so often so you don't consume too much water. But we've had a water ban in this community for 4 to 5 years. Some of the mismanagement of the Milford Water Company, there are 2 wells at the Milford Water Company that are capped. They're not even running because they don't want to spend the money to repair the wells. So the most important thing, in my opinion, right now facing this community is we need to continue to move forward. It's expensive. What we have in legal fees right now, astronomical, okay? But we need to continue. We need to purchase the Milford Water Company so that not myself, and maybe not even you, but your children, for that generation, we need to control that resource. That's the #1 issue.
I think the #1 issue for Milford is that the Board of Selectmen doesn't have a strategic plan for Milford that includes all of the residents of Milford. So what my challenger and I agree on is that immigration is a national issue. So that immigration means that, you know, it's not us at the town that determine like who comes into the country, who doesn't come into the country. So we agree on that, but we diverge really quickly after that, which is that on the current Board of Selectmen, they stand for demonizing, maybe, I don't know if that's the right word or not, but they certainly don't stand for humanizing immigrants. There's a distinction that they make, which they call legal immigrants. So they care about legal immigrants, but they don't have any grace or I guess grace is the right term. They don't have grace when it talks about the fact that our community is made up of a lot of different folks. It was based on and founded on immigrants, and we still have a lot of immigrants. And there's only 3,000 people that vote in our town, and if you don't come out and vote, all those people also don't like immigrants. So we need to have a strategic plan for Milford that includes like all of the people that live in Milford. That's our most important thing that this Board of Selectmen can be focused on.
Thank you, Ms. Clifford. Let me take some questions from our students.
I was wondering how purchasing the Milford Water Company would help us preserve the resource. Like, who currently owns it, and how are we going to be able to preserve it by purchasing it?
So the Milford Water Company is owned by another company called R.H. White, which is a large construction company. By purchasing the Milford Water Company, and I use this as an example, the Milford Sewer Department is owned by the town of Milford. And there are 3 commissioners that sit on the Milford Sewer Commission. We have appointed 3 water commissioners, although they're presently not serving. I can give you one great example. If you call the Milford Water Company on a Friday night at 5 minutes of 5, you have brown water, you have an odor in your water, or you have no water, chances are you're not going to hear from anybody until Monday morning, till the water company opens back up. You can go on the town website. My cell phone number and my email address are right on the website. You call me at 5 o'clock on a Friday night and tell me that you got odor in your water, you got brown water. Trust me, I'm going to call one of the water commissioners and I'm going to say, I'm going to meet you at 101 Highland Street in a half hour. And we'll make sure that we take care of that right away. Because as a taxpayer in this community, you should not have to live that way. And that's one of the many problems that we're having in this community right now with the current water commissioner. It's a great question.
So most of the towns in the state have their own water company, so this just puts us in line with everybody else. The whole fact that this is a big issue for the current selectmen is a reason why you would want to vote for me, because we voted to buy the water company. It obviously makes sense to buy the water company, and the current Board of Selectmen did some sort of handshake deal over $63 million purchase that then sort of fell apart, and now we have lawyers involved, and it's going to be maybe $153 million because the water company is now holding us over a barrel because they know we want to purchase them. And I spent 10 years in business before I got my law degree. It's just not how you handle a purchase like that. You need to make a deal. It needs to be on paper. The current Board of Selectmen runs this town like it's their own little fiefdom, and they don't handle this stuff in the right way, so that then we have this huge deal that now this is the biggest deal that the current Board of Selectmen is working on. I think that if you called Mike Walsh and you had an accent, you know, he'd want to, how would he know whether you're legal or illegal to come and meet you at your house with a brown water problem? That's my question.
Folks, if I could just, folks, if I could have you please quiet down so you can hear the next question.
I was wondering what you on the board would be doing about the growing opioid crisis in Milford and the surrounding towns, what you are going to do to help the people who are affected by this, both those addicted and their families.
So another great question. As everybody knows, the opioid problem, the drug problem, and the alcohol problem is a worldwide problem. It's not just Milford. Sitting on the Board of Selectmen, I get text message every time somebody gets sent to Milford Hospital or somebody unfortunately doesn't make it. I have wives, husbands, parents, children that reach out to me all the time. that's somebody that's affected by it. And I talk about this all the time, having personally been through it. From here to Boston, how many cancer centers do you see? We have one here in Milford. There's one in Framingham. There's one in Newton. There's multiple ones in Boston. How many treatment centers do you see from here to Boston that deal with drug addiction and alcoholism? I can name one, Newton Wellesley Hospital. I can name a second one down in Attleboro. So the first thing that we have to do, and I'm going to go over, Brian, a couple of minutes, and I'm sorry. The first thing that we need to do as a nation, we need to be aware that this is a serious, serious concern. We need to address it, and we need to get together and take action. Because drug addiction, alcoholism, and mental health is a health issue. And yet we treat heart disease, kidney disease, liver disease, and all these other diseases and cancer. But we don't take a serious look at things like drug addiction, alcoholism, and mental illness. And we as a nation, it's worldwide, trust me when I tell you it's worldwide, but we as a nation need to take a serious, serious step and move forward in the treatment of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, I'm sorry, Mike, but I seriously don't even know what he said. Like, the question was, what are we going to do about opioid addiction? And this is the kind of answer that goes really well with the 3,000 people who vote in Milford. So I want to know, what do you want to do about the opioid addiction? Nobody's really figured this out. The way to start is have an honest conversation about opioids and what's going on in our town, and accept those people as citizens and part of our community. That's the first step, and that doesn't happen with the 3,000 people who are voting today. It's a problem on the other side of the fence. We're all sorry about it. We all need to get together about it. But what's actually going on about it is really is nothing.
So, ladies and gentlemen, you know, we only have so much time this morning. We've really just scratched the surface with our candidates for selectmen. I know that I hope that if their schedules permit, that they'll stay here until the end of our forum. And if any of you have follow-up questions for our candidates for selectmen, I hope they'll be available to speak to you. But at this time, we're going to sort of switch, and we're going to bring our candidates for school committee up on stage so you can get a chance to hear from them. So please join me in thanking Mr. Walsh and Ms. Clifford. Folks, we're going to, thank you. We're going to give our candidates for school committee an opportunity to introduce themselves to you, and then we'll have a chance for your questions as well. I would like to note that one of our candidates for school committee, Mr. John Erickson, had hoped to be here this morning, but due to an unanticipated business problem, he was not able to attend, so he sends his regrets. So we're going to give each of the candidates an opportunity to introduce themselves, and we will go in alphabetical order. I do want to point out that in the center of the table, Mr. Legore is the incumbent, who's been serving on school committee for some time, and then the remaining candidates are challengers, and I believe we have 2 open seats that we have 6 candidates who are competing for. So first, I'll give Mr. Justin Dulac an opportunity to introduce himself.
Good morning, Milford High seniors. So first and foremost, the reason I'm running is because I can hit the ground running. I studied education in college. I did substitute teaching at every level of the Milford Public School system after college. And for the last 3 years, I've worked as the executive assistant to the superintendent in Sudbury Public Schools, directly supporting both their superintendent and their school committee. So I'm very aware of what the relationship should be like between a superintendent and the school committee, as well as all the other employees in a school district. Additionally, I've also served on the School Improvement Council here at the high school with Principal Ottman for about 1.5 years now, so I'm keyed in on what's going on at the high school level. Secondly, I'm running because I understand that the Milford High School and the Milford Public Schools are more than just a sum of its parts. It's more than just a bunch of different people moving around in a million different directions. wandering aimlessly. We are a community. I felt that when I was a student here back in November 2007. Sorry, it's not part storytelling. It was right before the wrestling season. My little sister, who was a freshman at the time, I was a junior, she was diagnosed with a malignant brain tumor, and that threw everything in my family into array. My mom had to be pulled out of the workforce because she had to drive Jill to and from cancer treatments in Children's Hospital in Boston, and we were a single-parent household, so that made our finances hard. Well, the school district heard about this, and when I went to go sign up for wrestling, my mom pulled together the money, submitted the check as she normally would. A couple weeks later, Nick Zakili, the athletic director at the time, called me aside after practice, and he handed me an envelope and let me know, hey, is anything I can do for you, anything we can do for you, let me know, we're here for you. I didn't open the envelope until I got home, but my whole family was stunned when we got there. Inside was the original check my mom had cut to the schools to pay for my participation fee in wrestling that season. That meant the world to us. Even if it was like, I think it was like $100, $125, something like that. But when your mom's not working, that's a lot of money. A couple of years later, the school district doubled down on this. After my sister went terminal, they brought her a cap and gown at her hospital bed in Children's Hospital. And they waived all the outstanding graduation requirements, and they performed a private graduation ceremony in Children's Hospital for Jill. I'll never forget the look on her face as the cap and gown were laying across her body with a couple of the school committee members and the superintendent there, Bob Tremblay at the time, helping her and making that special for her. So what I want to do is I want to make sure we preserve that community feel, and that's one of the main reasons I'm running today.
So next up is Mr. Jim Legore.
Good morning, everybody. How are you? Come on. I hope that's not just because of Josh. Anyway, I'm here today to talk to you a little bit. I'm running for re-election. I've been on the school committee for the last 3 years. It's been an absolute privilege to work for this district. I know we are here at the high school, so we're focused specifically on talking a little bit about what value we're going to add if I get an opportunity to come back for another 3 years. School committee generally manages budget, generally manages policy, but what I've had the opportunity to do over the last 3 years is work collaboratively with administration, not only from Josh Otland's perspective, or Principal Otland's perspective, but also Kevin McIntyre, Superintendent McIntyre, Mr. Consigli, and on down, looking for ways to improve the educational process here. And I know it's not amazing to talk about or sensationalize, but we're looking for ways to improve post-secondary outcome for everybody. So whether you're on a college track or you're not on a college track, we're looking for opportunities to improve life after high school. We're looking at expanding curriculum with examples like the construction management program, hotel and restaurant management, IT tech, manufacturing, etc. Anything that we can put together that can help improve post-secondary outcome for everybody. We've got a lot of great things we can be proud of here, offering 19 AP classes. 75 kids over the last 2 years have gone to Division I, II, and III schools, which is 3 times the state average. Our district tests higher than the state average on MCAS scores. So we've got a lot of things we can point at. And I'm looking for the opportunity to help push that forward again for another 3 years, and it's been my privilege to be here for the last 3 years, and I'm looking for an opportunity to move forward. Thank you.
Next up is Mr. Tarek Miranda.
Good morning. My name is Tarek Miranda. I was sitting here just 5 years ago before I graduated in 2014. I'm running for school committee because I just really want to give back to the town and the school system that's given me so much. I know better than most of them what the students need and want, and I really want to work with the administration throughout the entire school system, the school committee of the town, and making sure the future students, because you'll be graduating, that they get exactly what they need and we can move forward and succeed as a town together. I think it's very important for us to do, and that's why I think you should vote for me.
Our next candidate is Mr. R.J. Sheedy.
Hi everybody, my name is RJ Sheedy and I'm running for a position on the Milford School Committee. I'm running because I believe in our schools, in our town, and our students, and I really want to give it back to our town. I first became interested in school committee 7 years ago as a student here at MHS. In a video production class, our teacher asked us if there was anybody who was interested in filming the school committee meetings with them, with our town's cable station, Milford TV. And what was supposed to be my course in television production ended up becoming my crash course in civics and how this part of our town government works. Since then, I got more involved here in the town. I became an elected town meeting member and also began hosting a television talk show on Milford TV, where I got to speak to community members and government officials. And really, that is a lot. I think that's really important for me. It was able to teach me how to research, to listen, to ask the right questions, and to get the best answers. And I really feel to ask the right questions and to get the best answers is the best way for a school committee member to work with the issues. If I get elected, I'll be out there fighting for you guys, the students, be giving you guys the programs and the policies that you guys deserve, and it'll make your lives better. For a district-wide late bus to encourage you guys to have after-school extra help and after-school extra activities without the burden of transportation falling on you or your families. I'll be fighting for greener, more sustainable schools to reduce our environmental impact here in the district. I'll be advocating for policies and programs that will have a benefit on everybody here, because whether or not you're going to live in this town, or your family and friends are, better Milford schools will benefit us all. Finally, I just want to tell you one last thing. Your voice and your vote really, really matters. In a town, in a school committee election where we've seen candidates win by as few as 13 votes, your voice and your vote really matters. You guys could be the deciding factor on who wins this election and who loses this election. And it could all be done by 13 votes. So I would really encourage you guys to really look at everybody up here today. Look at our experiences, look at what we're bringing to the table. Decide who you think will be the best voice for the students of today's schools. And I really hope that I can be that voice for you. Thank you.
And our next candidate is Mr. Michael Visconti.
Thank you. My name is Mike Visconti, and I've got to tell you, I was a little apprehensive about holding this event because I thought that all of you would much rather be in your first period class learning something rather than be here. But then I thought, well, you could possibly learn something by coming here also. So when somebody asks you, what candidate did you learn holds degrees in management and finance, you could answer Mike Visconti. When someone asked you if you learned who has studied engineering and has 30 years of practical experience in engineering, you could answer Mike Visconti. When someone asks you who has years of experience in budget preparation and policy administration, you can answer Mike Visconti. If someone asks you if you learned which candidate wants to get all of the students involved in decision making because he feels that their input is extremely important and he feels that he can be a much better school committee member with input from all of the students, you can answer Mike Visconti. When someone asks you if you learned which candidate will question everything and will refuse to be force-fed misinformation and make decisions without questioning everything that is said, you can answer Mike Visconti. When someone asks you if you learned which candidate refuses to be bullied by other school committee members, and that's right, bullying is not restricted to students. Bullying exists on many boards and committees. In any case, you can answer the candidate who refuses to be bullied is Mike Visconti. When someone asks you did you learn which candidate has more than 60 years combined service, volunteer service to the town, you can answer Mike Visconti. Hold on. Like a lot of your classes now, we're going to have a pop quiz, okay? When someone asks you if you learned which candidate is most qualified to serve on the school committee, you can answer, let's hear it, Okay, well, you all get A's, and I'll try to get you an early dismissal.
All right, so, ladies and gentlemen, if you can, I want to give our candidates plenty of time to speak to you, so if you could please settle in. Thank you. So we're going to continue to give our candidates an opportunity to respond in alphabetical order. And again, similar question to our candidates that I put to the selectmen before we take questions from our students. Can I ask, please folks, thank you. Can I ask each of you to please identify one or two issues that you see as the greatest challenge facing the Milford Public Schools, and the ways that you believe that the school committee can make a positive impact with regard to those challenges. Mr. Dulac, I'll let you start first.
Thank you. So the first major challenge I think we're confronting as a school district is the state of our facilities. Last year, NESDEC worked with the school committee to conduct a survey, an in-depth research project into the state of all of our school buildings. And frankly, the results were alarming. The HVAC system here at MHS is ancient and hasn't been maintained properly, so it doesn't always work. A lot of the windows here are original to the building. They're leaking heat left and right. So that's costing us money as taxpayers, and it's distracting you as students from your education instead of enhancing your education. And at Stacy, the renovation that was done in 1994 isn't holding up well. So we really need to look into what we're going to do as a community to renovate or reconstruct some of the buildings here in Milford. That's a huge tax burden, so it's a major conversation that we need to begin having. Secondly, school start times are a major issue. Not just here, not just in Massachusetts, but around the country. Because right now, here in Milford specifically, we're on a model where as you get older, you go to school earlier. Multiple health studies have shown that teenagers actually are wired biologically. They have circadian rhythm to get up later and stay up later. So right now, those two ideas are working in conflict with one another. So I believe strongly that we need to do what's best for our students' health and push back start times at the middle school and high school level to 8:30 or later to accommodate your natural circadian rhythms.
So thank you, Mr. Dulac. Up next is Mr. Legore.
So two of the biggest problems I think we're facing are one, MCAS scores, and two, effects on post-secondary outcome for high school students. So kids that are not going to college after they graduate high school. 49% of our district is considered high needs, and some of those kids are not going to make it into college postgraduate. So what we're focusing on is putting together secondary curriculum, as I mentioned earlier, like not exactly like vocational classes, but very similar. So hotel and restaurant management, IT tech, manufacturing, offering programs like MacWic, offering internships, job share programs, in order to give everybody an opportunity to have their best foot forward once they graduate. From an MCAS perspective, I will say that we are working with math and English interventionalists at the secondary level and at the primary level in order to help improve MCAS scores moving forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Legore. Next up is Mr. Miranda.
Two of the problems I think we face are, like Jim said, the MCAS scores, and a lot of kids who just don't know what they want to do when they graduate. A lot of kids get forced into college because they think that's the only thing they have, and I think we need to, as Jim stated, we need to give them more options. We have to show them that there's more than just college life. There's trades, there's starting your own business, there's the Army, Air Force, there's the Armed Forces. All of these different ways to live your life without being put in this one set path. Go to school K through 12, go to college, find a job, work 8 to 5, and that's it. There's so many other ways to live your life, and I want to be able to help pass policies and push for those other ways for those kids who just don't want to go to college and don't like school. It's not for everyone. It was for me. It was for most of these guys over here, and it's not for some of you. I just want to help you get to your full potential one day. Thank you.
So thanks, Mr. Miranda. Next is Mr. Sheedy.
So I think the two biggest problems that we're facing as a school district is, one, how can we best serve all of you? As one of the other candidates said, 52% of our population is high needs. What high needs means is whether or not you're economically disadvantaged, an ELL student, or if you're taking part in our special education services. So I think we always need to find better ways to serve everybody the best we can. And the second issue I think that we would have is, like many of the other candidates said, our infrastructure. We have to begin having serious conversations about what's the future for our schools, what's the future for the technologies that we have in our school. We got to start looking at how can we how can we make our infrastructure here better? Can we introduce a late bus that can serve all our students? Can we introduce more green technologies so we can reduce our environmental impact? So basically that's it, how to better serve everybody in our infrastructure. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Sheedy. Next is Mr. Visconti.
You know, one of the biggest problems we have here, and let's shy away from studies for a minute, we need to concentrate on maintaining our buildings and our infrastructure, all of our schools. Short story. When I was here last year, in a fairly prominent location, I wrote my initials in the dust. When I came here this morning, you guessed it, you can still see the outline of my initials in that dust. Now you might say, well, what's a little bit of dust? Well, the issue is a little bit of dust is indicative of a much major problem, and that is maintenance of our school buildings. We're talking about now having to spend hundreds of millions of dollars for new schools. We need a solid preventive maintenance program. I've spent years preparing and administering many preventive maintenance programs for many different organizations, both private and public, and I can help in that respect. We need to maintain our schools. You guys should be proud of your school, and you should, when people come in here, they should be able to say, boy, this is the cleanest school I've ever seen. We cannot do that now. Thank you.
I'd like to take some questions from our students. Someone else.
So you guys recognized a bunch of issues that are in this school, but what are you actually going to do? What programs are you going to put in place? What people are you going to work with to actually solve these problems?
Well, I think speaking to a couple issues that I brought up, and I think a couple of my other candidates brought up, in terms of facilities, there is the long-range planning committee that's meeting. They're supposed to have a meeting on Monday night that got snowed out. So I'm very interested in hearing what the committee's already got lined up in that way. But I also want to work with Principal Otland to discuss what the needs of Milford High School long-term are, because we have shop classes that are being taught in proper environments right now. We have science classes that aren't being taught in proper environments right now. So we need to do an analysis of just what exactly we want to do. So in terms of infrastructure, that's one first step. In terms of school start times, there are a lot of different discussions that are going to happen there. You need to talk with bus companies to figure out what kind of runs you need to make. You need to talk to teachers about how it's going to impact school schedules. You need to talk to students and families about how it's going to impact their work schedules and their after-school activity schedules. So there's a lot of different parties we're going to have to involve in that discussion. But I'm ready to have that conversation because it's so impactful to our students' long-term health, their understanding of proper sleep hygiene.
Mr. Lee.
So to address two things, one that Mr. Dulac said. So there is a long-range facility plan. That plan actually is laid out. It's actually shared publicly, and it's actually on the school website, or it will be shortly. And it does lay out the long-range opportunity for improvement for this particular facility. Looking at a new facility, if you were going to start from the ground up, we're looking at a $200 million endeavor. So we're going to be taking that in steps. There's a lot of discussions on whether or not we're going to build a field house, what direction we're going to go in order to improve that. As of right now, there's also a capital budget which allows us to make targeted improvements to this facility moving forward. I know it's hot in here in the summer. I know it's cold in here in the winter. This building is 47 years old, so it needs a lot of upkeep and maintenance, and that's what Rob Quinn and his staff are designed to do based on a capital budget approved by the school committee in the town. As far as what I said earlier about moving post-secondary outcome forward, which I think is actually a bigger issue for kids that don't know what they're going to do after high school, that's where my passion actually lies. So working with local organizations to put together internships and programs for job share programs, and looking for ways to build that pipeline for opportunity afterwards. I have the opportunity now of working with Alex Dion and his business class at EMC in order to help drive educational interest in business disciplines. So I've had the opportunity over the last 10 to 12 weeks of working with a number of students who come in, and I work with them in order to help facilitate their projects and plans. And that has actually been a very successful opportunity for me in order to help move the experience forward in terms of giving kids experience of what they can expect when they graduate. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Reward. Next is Mr. Miranda.
So, as I said, I mentioned earlier, MCAS scores are one of the biggest problems we have, and I would tackle that by creating a plan that would allow for the hiring of new teachers to teach where we're struggling and reinforce those subject matters, because that's what a lot is based on, the school, and how other families look into the town if they want to move in here. The first thing to look at is school and safety, and if we're not performing well, then we lose out on people moving into the town, and it could be great people. And another thing I'd like is to keep expanding the trades, I guess, but we can't compete with BVT, so I want to get us close enough to competing with them without actually competing with them, if that makes any sense. Because we legally can't have trade school here. So I want to stay right under the radar and offer as much as we possibly can without actually competing with them and breaking the law.
Mr. Sheedy.
Thank you for the question. So yeah, there is a lot of things that we're telling you up here that we're going to be doing when we get elected. There's a lot of plans that we have. But here's the truth of it. We are all competing for 2 seats on a 7-member board. The school committee is a 7-member board. So in order for anybody to do anything, you got to get 4 other members with you in your goals. One way that I hope that if I get elected, I can push my agenda is with the help of you, the voters. I want you, the voters, to hold me accountable for what I'm telling you I will do. I want you guys to come to the school committee meetings, taking advantage of that invitation to speak and saying, hey, I want you guys to do this. I want you to do this. I want you to do that. Working with my committee collaboratively and getting constant communication from you, the voters, is how I think I can be held responsible and to do the things that I'm telling you I will do. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Sheedy. Mr. Visconti.
Thank you. I think I've said enough about preventive maintenance, so let's key on later school starts, okay? And let me answer that question this way. When a lot of you guys go off to college, and you will find yourself one day having to walk maybe a couple miles across campus to get to a 7:30 class in which there is a major exam scheduled, for which you have just pulled an all-nighter studying for. You need to be conditioned to get into this mode, and this is where you get that conditioning. As far as improving our academic process, my feeling is we need to get back to the basics. And I know that we live in a technological world now, but we still need to know how to read, write, and add 2 and 2. So we should concentrate on that and get back to our basics. If you can read, write, and add, subtract, multiply, and divide, you can succeed in college or seek other career opportunities other than a college degree. Thank you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, at this time I want to be very respectful of our candidates' time. They're all busy professionals, and I also want to be respectful of your time and your education this morning. So I want to welcome any of you after we dismiss here in a moment. If you'd like to stick around to speak to any of our candidates, feel free to please stick around and speak to them personally. But in closing, please join me in thanking all of our candidates for joining us this morning at Milford High School.